Hey guys, it's Tim and this is the Wrestling Wrap-Up. It's a video, I guess you could say podcast, where we bring you a bunch of news stories all in one for you guys, and it's very easy to keep up with. And today we got a number of topics. We're going to talk about the WWE co-president exit, or force out, as some is saying. We're going to talk about a couple other things as well, like the WWE live events being cut down actually more than half this month. And we'll also give you some updates for tonight's Monday Night Raw in Salt Lake City. Kenny, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on? A lot of changes in terms of the top of WWE and a lot of news coming out of Raw that a lot of rumors in regards to Raw, but I'm excited for this episode, man.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm trying to figure out a couple other things for Raw. Okay,
Dude, you
so
say interesting. I say confusing, man. This is I've never seen the bottom fall out like this. This is kind of crazy. A
right.
lot of news, yeah, in terms of WWE.
So I guess let's see who's here with us in the live chat first, just to see. We've got, as always, we got Chris Danger, Eric Clark, Ruben Rodriguez, Sinclair Saturday, Jonathan Powell, and more of you. So let's just jump in with our first topic, which is WWE stock falls pretty, I guess you could say, significantly after the co-presidents, or should I say former co-presidents, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, exit the company. So if you guys didn't hear the big news that came out on Thursday, I want to say at roughly 4 p.m. Eastern Time, WWE sent out a press release on their corporate website stating that effective immediately, co-presidents George Barrios and Michelle Wilson are no longer with the company. They're gone. Some
Wow.
were describing it as they were forced out. Some were describing it as they had different visions for the future than Vince and some board members did. And, Vince has final call, so he said, you're out of here. And the one interesting thing with all of this is the stock price and where the stock price could go going forward. We already saw within the first 2 hours or so of the news breaking, the stock dropped 20 to 22%. By the end of closing Friday, the stock had dropped 25%, and opening today, it was down 26%. Now, the one interesting thing in all this as far as the future of WWE goes is, what does this mean for when Vince McMahon is retired or unfortunately passes away or whatever happens to him no longer being in charge? Many people were always under the impression of Triple H runs the wrestling side of the business, and Michelle Wilson and George Barrios, they run the business side of the business, like the whole corporate end, because that's not Triple H's forte. That's not what people know Triple H for. Yeah, we've seen he can put on good wrestling shows and book good stuff like that with NXT, but we don't know how well he's going to be, I guess you could say, running the board, running the entire company. And the one thing I've heard, trying to, think of everything, there's so much here, Wall Street may not accept Triple H as the overall, I guess you could say, owner, president, whatever you want to call it, once Vince is gone. Because he has no formal track record of that whole business side of things. So that's going to be the one interesting thing is, how does Wall Street look at this? Because we also have got what many think is the reason for this exit, this force out, the financial report coming up on Thursday morning, where they're going to announce all the earnings for the fourth quarter of 2019. Now, hear me out. They may be up because they're getting all that Fox money. But when you look at it and break it down, there's going to be a lot of things that are down and a lot of things that Barrios and Wilson have implemented that just aren't working out, to be completely honest.
Do you think, Tim, do you think this has something to do with AEW kind of coming into the fold and perhaps Vince feeling like they are not, the two presidents, I should say, were not up to snuff when it came to competing with another product? Do you feel it has something to do with that? I kind of have a feeling, even though, yes, the WWE was on the right track, the general perception of WWE has been going down and down. So, yes, like you said, on paper, you got Fox money, you got, the business is good, but maybe they're not understanding the long-term future of WWE, and Vince was like, no, I need someone that understands that we need to keep competing.
I get that question is going to come up as far as does AEW have anything to do with this, and Vince looking at that as competition. And from what I've heard and read, I haven't heard that this has anything to do with the competition of AEW. Basically, just they've wanted to do things for the company that, like the WWE network, they were really, really hard on pushing all pay-per-views go on the network. Yes, we
Right.
will still keep pay-per-views on traditional pay-per-view, and charge 50, $60 for those for people that can't, because I know people, I mean, where I used to live, the WWE network is garbage because the internet is garbage. So if I wanted to watch a pay-per-view, I'd still have to get it off Dish Network or DirecTV because I couldn't stream it. And there's still a lot of people that happens with. I want to say it was either Survivor Series or TLC, maybe the pay-per-view before Survivor Series, not the Saudi show, did like 20,000 pay-per-view buys. So
Interesting. Well,
there's still a lot of people that buy on pay-per-view because, their internet's not good enough to stream. And that was one of the things that they were high on, is pushing the network and putting every pay-per-view on that network. And we have seen that, well, the WWE network is not where they projected it to be after, what has it been now, 6-7 years? Because it started in 2014. So it's been about 6 years.
I mean, even then, I always kind of, and I'm talking from a business point of view, I've always disagreed with every pay-per-view being on the WWE network, because I think the network was worth it without the pay-per-views. I think you kind of set the precedent that, pay-per-views don't mean as much when you include it with a $10 price tag. Mainly, especially WrestleMania. I feel like WrestleMania should be the one pay-per-view that, like, you can kind of get away with having it on pay-per-view, or having it, people pay separately for it. So maybe it has something to do with that, which is like, yeah, they implemented some good plans, but like they've kind of watered down the perception of the WWE just with little decisions like that.
I mean, I've always thought that you run all your, I guess you can call them B-level pay-per-views like Backlash and Elimination Chamber, Fastlane, or whatever on the WWE network.
Right.
And then your main ones like Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, maybe Survivor Series, maybe Money in the Bank if you want to loop those in. You put those on traditional pay-per-view, or you find a way to add a feature to the network where they're either on an upgraded tier, as we've heard, or you have to pay separately for those. So you got to go on there, which I don't know how easy that would be, because as we've seen with ESPN Plus and them running the UFC stuff, it's a pretty big hassle to order a UFC pay-per-view. You can't just go on your TV, load up your Roku or your Fire Stick and click order. You literally got to go on your computer or your phone, go to ESPN Plus, order it through that, and then go back to your account on your TV. So, I mean, there's ways of doing it, and I've always thought of, here's a question for you. What if, because the Super Bowl was just yesterday, so this is why I was thinking this. What if WWE gets a huge money rights fee to put WrestleMania, or at least, to put WrestleMania on broadcast television, like a Fox, like an ABC, like an NBC, or like a CBS?
I think that'd be huge, but I think they would be forced to run commercials to kind of make it profitable.
Right.
Do something like that. I mean, even have something like a halftime show. I mean, they've done it in the past. They've had like Pitbull and stuff perform, but you right. And I was at that. So they tricked us, by the way. They tricked us by putting the cameras all through the crowd so that we would dance for the cameras, but they used none of those shots. The camera wasn't even on. So just so you know, if we looked excited for Pitbull, that was why. Gotcha. But anyway, they have to do a couple things, and then that goes back to maybe, I've heard the rumors of the 2-day WrestleMania. Could it make sense then? Because then you have commercials, you'd have 2 events on a Sunday, a Saturday and a Sunday, I should say. I don't know. I mean, it could make sense. I mean, I think WWE is making some moves so that their business model is not so antiquated. I know we got some other news to talk about in regards to that. So I would be excited to kind of see where they go from here in regards to that. Yeah, I've had people. I dated a girl, I'll never forget. I went to WrestleMania 28. And she was messaging me. She was like, "Hey, where do I watch WrestleMania? Is it on TV?" I was like, "No, it's on pay-per-view." And she almost didn't understand. She thought, "Oh, this is the Super Bowl of wrestling." I thought it'd be on broadcast TV. So perhaps you're correct in thinking that would be a good idea.
I mean, it would for sure. I'm going to look something up while we talk here, but it would for sure bring in a lot of new eyes. And I hope with WWE getting commercials during the Super Bowl last night, I hope that helps maybe a little bit. I don't know how much it's going to help because once the actual Super Bowl itself started, I maybe saw 1 or 2 SmackDown commercials opposed to like 5 during the pre-show.
Yeah,
But
random tidbit on the AEW end of things. AEW had a full page
yeah,
ad on the second page of, or the first page, I should say, once you flipped over the cover of the Super Bowl program,
yeah,
which is
Dave
kind of
Meltzer
crazy.
reported that last week in the Observer. Basically, you open it, the backside of the cover had like Garoppolo and what's the Chiefs quarterback? I'm not the biggest football fan.
Yeah, I mean, either, I'm not gonna lie to you. Someone
Mahomes
in the
on it.
chat hit us
It
up.
had
Yeah, Patrick
Mahomes on it,
Mahomes.
and then boom, the first thing you see if you don't look at the back of the cover, there's AEW.
Yeah.
The basic poster we've seen since the announcement of Dynamite, but still,
Right, that's still huge. I mean, that must
yeah,
have cost
a
a
lot.
pretty penny
Yeah,
to get that done.
unless
And
Tony Khan knows somebody since he's
I
got his
mean, he
football
owns the
connections.
Jags. Yeah, but still, even then, even if he got a little discount, I'm sure that was still a lot
Right.
of money. Yeah,
So I was trying to see what the Super Bowl did in their ratings, just to compare. Like, hey, this is compare that to a normal football game, and then compare like what Raw usually does to what a what a WrestleMania can do on
right. And
broadcast television. But apparently, for some reason, I don't know why, the ratings are delayed right now.
right. I mean, that's to tell you they're probably counting all of
Exactly.
them, in terms of the apps and everything. But to say, and people in the chat right now are saying Cody Rhodes and Brandy Rhodes were at the Super Bowl. So were Triple H and Stephanie.
A
So
lot
was
of people
Baron
were.
Corbin. A lot of people were at the Super Bowl last night. Just a heads up. But to talk about that point, I think 10 years ago, I wouldn't have agreed with the WrestleMania being on network TV for the simple reason that, at that time, pay-per-views were still a big thing. Streaming wasn't as big. But now in today's world, especially since they've, like I said, arguably diminished the value of the pay-per-views by putting them on the network, I think it would actually make WrestleMania a bigger deal, a huge deal if you put it Sunday, 7 o'clock on Fox, give it the same treatment as a Super Bowl. I mean, we all call it, I've said it before, but we call it the Super Bowl of wrestling.
Right.
So treat it as the Super Bowl of wrestling. And I think, like you said, we'll get a lot of new fans into the professional wrestling business, which is can do nothing but good.
So if you look at the ratings for I got the ratings here for the Super Bowl for the last decade.
Right.
Last year's was the lowest of the decade at 98.2 million viewers. Their peak,
the lowest. Listen to that.
their peak was in 2015. I don't know what game that was. It was 114.4 million viewers watched the Super Bowl. And so even if WWE can do half of that with putting WrestleMania, a quarter of that with putting WrestleMania on Fox or NBC or something,
Right.
I mean, that's going to bring in a good amount of viewers as long as that's a good WrestleMania that'll be like, I see this. Wait, there's other shows I can watch. Granted, maybe they don't get cable. You can still go, okay, well, there's a show on Friday on Fox. That's a good idea. Let me check that out.
And there's the network for $10 a month, which is not a huge cost to people. So I mean, it would only do nothing but good. I mean, yeah, I mean, in today's world, that's just a big advertisement. And also, WrestleMania, let's be honest, there's a lot of part-timers that show up at WrestleMania. So even the most jaded fan might be like, hey, there's The Rock, there's Batista, there's Stone Cold, there's Hulk Hogan.
Right.
They're and try to check out what the new guys are all about. So I think all in all signs point to it being a good idea.
And like you alluded to earlier, though, they're going to have to run commercials. And the interesting thing will be, how would those commercials play out? Would they have to cut away during matches, or would they be able to run a match, run a 3-minute set of commercials, run a match or two, 3-minute set of commercials? That would be the other interesting thing is, if you're watching a WrestleMania, you don't want it to cut out randomly in the middle of a match, especially if it's the 2 or 3 top matches of the show.
So I would actually argue that it might be a good thing for the simple reason that what's the biggest thing? I think we talked about this on last week's episode. What's the biggest thing about WrestleMania that people don't like? It's how long it is. So if you put little breaks in between, I think it would actually help. And I mean, it does nothing for the live crowd, but it would help people kind of recharge their energy, go use the bathroom, go grab some nachos, come back, do what they need to do, as opposed to having to sit and focus their whole attention. Because let's be honest, in today's world, someone during the middle of the match, anyways, picking up their phone, they're looking at something
Right.
else, they're kind of recharging in a different way. So at least this would be monetarily, this would be a good thing for WWE, and then it would help viewers at home not have to feel like they're just watching a match for 20 minutes. So I don't think it would actually be a bad thing.
Right. I mean, I get where you're coming from, where people need a little bit of a break in between. But I just don't know, especially if it's like, say, last year's WrestleMania. If it was
Right.
Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte versus Becky, do you really want them to cut out during that match, the main event?
Absolutely. I was tired during that match. I'll tell you that because I was actually at the event. That match went on after midnight.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's an argument there because I also feel like, right, what we're not considering in the TV production end of things is that it would force them to be quicker with things. So it
True.
would force them to kind of like, instead of a 25-minute match, you would have to say, okay, you're getting 15 minutes. There's a 2-minute commercial in between. This is where you're going. This is what we have to do. So now the pace is a lot more frenetic. And if anybody, is sitting here, if y'all remember the Attitude Era, the frenetic pace of the Attitude Era is kind of what made it popular, not just because of the adult themed storylines. So I think it would actually help the energy of a WrestleMania, in my opinion. And then also during the match, you can cut away. You don't just have to show commercials. Remember, also, they can do picture in picture.
Correct.
Something we're not considering. They can do picture in picture. It doesn't take away from the match, and you get your advertisements in. So
Because I know Fox and both NBC are not against picture in picture because they do it for NASCAR races.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, which is kind of weird that we don't see Fox do it for SmackDown when they cut away during a match.
Yeah.
Because we did see USA do it for SmackDown, and we had heard the rumor of, oh, well, this is just a practice for SmackDown when they go to Fox if they want to do picture in picture, and we haven't seen
Right.
that. So,
Right.
like you said,
It's
there's
interesting.
the ability of picture in picture as well. But at the same time, if you're, say, the Super Bowl went picture in picture, and
Right.
you're paying $5.6 million for your commercial to run for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
do you
Right.
really
This is
want
true.
the picture in picture there where people are not paying attention to your commercial? They're possibly paying attention to the game still. Because I can't remember. I think it may have been NASCAR in the Daytona 500 a few years ago. I had read something where they were charging a lot for commercials. Fox was able to do that, but they were charging a reduced price if your commercial was going to air during a picture-in-picture time.
Right.
Because with NASCAR, they do have the breaks with the caution flags and all that, where they cut away and it's full screen commercials. But a lot of times, if they cut away during the action of the race while they're still green and on the track, they'll go picture in picture. So they did do a thing that I read where Fox was giving people a discounted rate on the commercials because, people may not be 100% paying attention to your commercial.
Gotcha.
So that's another option you got too there. But again, as we start to wrap up this topic, the financials for Thursday are going to be very telling as far as if that is why they were let go or not. And a lot of people do feel that could be the issue. And that also plays into our next topic of WWE cutting back the number of live events they're doing this month. So if you look at WWE live events, for the last I don't know how many years, since God, I don't even know how many years, because it was even before they did the whole Raw and SmackDown draft in 2016. They run 2 live events a night, Friday, So typically they do Saturday, Sunday. It's all jumbled up now because Fox has SmackDown on Friday, so there's no live event on Friday anymore most weeks. So if we just look at
Correct.
Saturday and Sunday, you've got a Raw house show, a SmackDown house show for both days. In February, you would think if they didn't take off this past weekend, there would have been 18 house shows in the month of February.
18. Really think about that. That's kind of crazy that they were doing that amount in today's world. In today's, I mean, that to me that worked in the 90s, but I don't know about today.
Before the Fox move, there was even
Right.
more because
Of course,
you had Raw was doing house show on Friday, house show on Saturday, house show on Sunday. You're live on Monday. SmackDown was doing Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You're live on Tuesday. So that was even more If you were going off that mentality, the number would be higher than 18. But if we're just going off of Saturday, Sunday, because we really don't see any more Friday house shows up against SmackDown or Monday house shows up against Raw. Yeah, in December and November, the SmackDown crew did run a couple Thursday house shows. But if you look at just Friday, Saturday, there would have been 18 house shows in the month of February. That has been reduced to only 7, with 4 of those house shows being super shows where it is dual branded shows, not just just the Raw brand's coming or just the SmackDown brand's coming. We got matches from both brands.
Right. And it makes you wonder, it's like, is the brand split necessary now? I'm actually okay with now on TV, I'm okay with Raw and SmackDown being separate. I do think for the house show model that a super show would be a lot better, because a lot of these local towns are going to be like, well, I'm going to see one guy, but I'm not going to see another guy. That kind of sucks. I'm okay with the super shows. They've done this before, however, and then eventually the brand split went away. So I don't know. I'm hoping that's not the case. But like I said earlier, it was an antiquated business model, to have all of these live events. I don't think a lot of people see the value. I'm talking about the general fans. They don't want to go, again, general perception. They don't want to go to house shows. They want to go to the show that, they can see themselves on TV. Just my opinion.
But
I know. Go ahead. Yeah.
Not to cut you off, but here's one thing about that, though, because I can speak from firsthand experience.
Right.
What if they don't come often for television to your city, and all you get are house shows? Because here in Fresno, we usually get 2 shows a year. It's weird that they're doing one in February. There's actually a show this weekend. It's weird because they never do February. It's usually July and November that they come here. And it's very, I guess you could say, scarce when we get live television, like tapings. I was at the last tapings I went to WrestleMania 31 in San Francisco. Then I went to the SmackDown the following Tuesday. So that was 2015. And then in 2000...
I was at that one too, actually. I was at the WrestleMania and
Nice.
that Raw. So we were in the same building. We just didn't know each other at the time.
And then I went to it was after WrestleMania 32, the one that was in Orlando.
In Dallas.
No,
I'm
thinking 33. 33.
33 was in Orlando, yeah.
So the next pay-per-view was Payback after that, and then they came here. So that was the last TV taping I went to. And then they did 2018 Christmas tapings here in Fresno.
Oh,
that's
those
how
Christmas
scarce
ones are horrible.
That's how scarce they come here for television tapings.
Right. And that makes you wonder, it's like, should that be the change, that they stop going to the same cities for TV over and over and over again? Because they seem to go to, the big cities and
Right.
a lot. And then, like here in Tampa, for example, we always get like a July show, I think it is, and like a December show. Of course, we're getting WrestleMania this year, so no complaints from me. But as normally it's only those 2 times a year. And, I know I never want to go to the December one because I know it's going to be the house show after Christmas,
Right.
where nobody really cares. So it's kind of, maybe that's it. Maybe it's that they need to kind of just be a little bit more random with it. Just my opinion.
Because, like you said, a lot of people just want to wait and see, hey, can I go to one where they're going to actually be taping TV? But as I noted, it's scarce. It's every couple of years we get television here. I mean,
Right.
We haven't had a pay-per-view since the 2005 Royal Rumble. Here.
Oh, wow.
That's the last time they did a pay-per-view in Fresno. I mean, we got stuff close, like when they go to San Jose or when they go to LA. That's 3 hours, 4 hours away. But who wants to really drive that far for just a TLC or a Payback pay-per-view?
Right. And you see that's exactly what I'm getting at. It's the perception. It's you're saying, who wants to drive out for those meager pay-per-views?
Right.
So maybe that's where they need to change it up a little bit and maybe give a smaller town one of these bigger pay-per-views and kind of just set the precedent, like, hey, we may come to your town more often with some of these bigger pay-per-views, with some live events, or I should say with some TV tapings, as opposed to just house shows. So I think it's a good thing, because it's no coincidence, I think, that WWE is scaling these back. They fired the 2 presidents. I think they want some change. They feel the need for change in their company, and we'll see Thursday when those earnings are reported, because I think that'll really set the tone to see why we're getting the change that we're getting.
And like you said, this cutting back the live events could correlate to the number we get for the earnings and stuff. And that's the other thing that we've heard is it's not could the, we know that the attendance is down at house shows, which
Right.
means that probably the number of
Ticket
merch
sales.
sold at house shows is down. So overall, the revenue coming from running house shows is down. So why not run more of these super shows?
And
A,
I don't.
you're
Go ahead.
gonna
Sorry.
anyways, A, you're gonna give guys time off, and B, you're not gonna be running. How do I want to word this? You're giving guys time off, but at the same time, you're doing these super shows, so it's like, oh, I don't have to say, because sometimes they do run the Raw and SmackDown house shows close. Because I know there was a time where Dean Ambrose, it was so close, Dean Ambrose was able to work the opening of a SmackDown house show and be there for the main event of a Raw house show.
Right.
So running that close, you don't have to be like, oh, do I drive an hour to go to the Raw show or do I drive an hour to go to the SmackDown show? No, I'll drive 1 hour or in my city and go to one that's got all the wrestlers. But then doing the super shows, you run the risk of, well, who's got the weekend off? Oh, Roman Reigns isn't working this weekend? Never mind, I don't want to go. Oh, no Miz this weekend? Never mind. That's the other issue you have is when you give guys time off, then some fans may want to see those certain wrestlers in their city, then they don't get them, then they don't end up wanting to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's risk involved both ways.
Right.
I think I ultimately I think we've discussed this in terms of our podcast and our YouTube channels, which is you sometimes you kind of got to change it up just to see what the general perception is and see what sticks and see what people like. And I think WWE is finally doing that. They're finally realizing, hey, house show model's not working. Let's try something different. Obviously, if this doesn't work, they'll go back to business as usual. We've seen them do that. I mean, look at that third hour of Raw. They had, a completely different feel for like 2 weeks, and then they were like, nope, let's go back to what we were doing. So we've seen WWE pull the plug on stuff often, really. So hopefully this business model works out for them because I think it will, cut some costs for them and hopefully earn them some more being super shows as a general statement. Yeah.
And I mean, just one last thing on this. If you look at the month of March leading into WrestleMania, again, they're supposed to be, if you look at just Saturday, Sundays, and if they would have ran 2 shows a night, there would have been 18 as well because February is a long month this year. So you have the extra day or so. So you would have had 18 shows as well. Right now, there are only 13 shows scheduled, live events that is, for the month of March, with 3 of them being super shows. The rest are all split Raw and SmackDown house shows. So they're not cutting back as much in the month of March leading into WrestleMania, but you would think going into WrestleMania is when your business is the hottest, so you run more to capitalize on that.
The one thing though with March, you risk injuring your talent if you work them a little bit too much. I know we've seen some, in years past, we've seen some big injuries going into Mania. So arguably this could be a good thing because, you don't risk a Roman Reigns getting injured or one of your big matches falling out. So hopefully this is a good thing in terms of rest for the talent. They can make more media appearances instead of having to actually wrestle and advertise WrestleMania. So hopefully a good thing.
Very true. And one last thing on that is, like you said, hopefully you don't risk hurting your talent, so you give guys time off or run less shows so they're not as beaten up. And maybe that is a thing they're thinking of now with doing these less house shows. Maybe they're thinking, oh man, a lot of guys are getting hurt. Just last week, 6 guys were basically knocked out.
Right into WrestleMania season. Yeah. That's kind of exactly what I'm insinuating, which is like, the human body can only take so much as these are superheroes,
Going into tonight's Raw, Joe's status is still unknown.
Right.
Because he may, now I'm emphasizing the word may, have suffered a concussion last week in that was a 6-man tag or whatever it was.
That was a bad bump, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a concussion.
And speaking of Monday Night Raw, we got Monday Night Raw tonight. And we know basically nothing for this show. WWE is running in Salt Lake City, Utah. And yeah, their website has a quote-unquote preview, but it's not previewing anything. It's basically, will Drew McIntyre respond to Brock Lesnar attacking him last week? Will Charlotte Flair make or hint at her challenge for WrestleMania? And the fallout from Edge and Orton. Now, There are a couple websites and Twitter accounts and whatnot tweeting about this weather. It's snowing right now in Salt Lake City. Basically, you take a step outside, your foot sinks in the snow. It is at the moment, I want to say 19 degrees and snowing. It's not supposed to get any warmer than 25 degrees today, and it will continue to snow throughout the day going into when Raw does start there. Now, I did speak with one person who works for WWE that is already at the building. They showed up there, when they're supposed to earlier today, but I want to say like 2.5 hours ago. And they said that as far as they know, show's going on as planned. It's a normal Monday. Then I saw a couple people tweeting out that talent's delayed, that they're speaking with the mayor about this. And again, I was told, I haven't heard anything about delays. This person would know about people getting into the building and whatnot. So if anybody's delayed, I assume this person would know. Just saying. So if you see anything out there about Raw may be canceled tonight, some wrestlers may not be able to make it. Now there's a chance that some may not be able to make it because there's 35-mile-an-hour winds. There's a high wind winter storm advisory for the airport. They may shut down the Salt Lake City airport. But from everything that I was told this morning, from the person I spoke with directly, everything is a normal Monday so far. So we'll see if we hear anything different. We will give you guys some updates. But as far as matches do go, don't know anything in that regard. WWE, at least since we've gone live, I haven't looked. Hasn't announced anything.
So I just did about 5 minutes ago. WWE's YouTube, actually, WWE Now, just basically said that Randy Orton is going to be on Raw to explain his actions about why he attacked Edge. So we do at least have that announced. They're going to provide an update on Edge's condition right now. So yes, so at least we know. I mean, I think we kind of expected that, but
yeah.
Like Tim was saying, you don't know. There's a possibility that some of these guys weren't in the building, so we can at least get confirmation that Randy Orton's there to follow up on the biggest storyline from last week, which is, him attacking Edge at the end of Raw. So at least that's a good thing, And then we had heard rumors for weeks about, Christian being involved in this, but I think you have some news on that, on why Christian may or may not be involved in terms of his clearance. Yeah.
We reported yesterday that Christian was expected to be at Raw tonight in Salt Lake City to possibly confront Randy Orton. What we were told was that, like I said, Christian was expected, but what Christian does and can do is what's unclear, because since Christian retired, I want to say, 2014, 15, from a number of concussions, he hasn't shown any signs or done, unlike Edge, done anything to try and get himself cleared. So WWE, as we've seen in the past, if you're not cleared at all, you're not doing anything. Hence why when they tried to get Paige out of the Kabuki Warriors, all she was able to do was take the mist. They weren't allowed to put her in the Oscar lock. They weren't allowed to kick her. They weren't allowed to. She wasn't even allowed to take the mist and then take a bump. She had to take the mist and then slide out of the ring. So WWE is very cautious on that, especially with somebody that had to retire due to concussions. Yeah, granted, I don't think Christian's had a concussion since his last match. But either way, they're going to be very careful on that. And so
the chat's asking or mentioning the Hall of Fame, and I kind of do want to tie this into what I was going to say. I wouldn't be surprised. They were saying the 2020 Hall of Fame class. I wouldn't be surprised if Christian is announced into the 2020 Hall of Fame, and that kind of segues his involvement into this storyline. So maybe he shows up and they announce him as a member, and then Randy Orton can attack him, but maybe that'll be closer to Mania so that Christian can have time to be cleared. And this is assuming Christian is cleared, because as Tim said, if he's not cleared, he is not going to be involved. WWE is not going to let him do anything.
Yeah. He's just not going to take an RKO.
In terms of physical activity, I should say. Because, a lot of people were like, well, Edge did a spear, and it's like, well, yeah, Edge was cleared. Now that we see him in the Royal Rumble, you know he was cleared SummerSlam weekend to do that.
Edge was cleared by his personal doctor before August 2019.
Right.
He made a hint on his podcast about it. He then spoke with AEW about working for them as a part-time wrestler, coach, and producer. And then, of course, he came back to WWE. So the whole thing about, they let Edge do a spear. He was cleared by his personal doctor.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yes, he wasn't 100% cleared by the WWE doctors yet, because we heard he didn't go do that till October. But a doctor had still said, he's perfectly fine to do this.
Well, that makes you wonder, we're discussing WWE doctors not clearing Christian. Could perhaps he be cleared by a personal doctor and none of us know it?
Well,
I
that's the
mean,
thing. What I
right.
was told, Christian hasn't even tried.
Gotcha.
Like, he's just, from what the assumption is Edge was trying. Christian hasn't shown any signs of, oh, I'm going to try and get cleared, even to do a little bit.
Gotcha.
So that's the difference there between the whole Edge and Christian thing. But as far as, like I said, Raw goes tonight, just to put a pin on that one, the only thing WWE has announced is Randy Orton will speak. Other than that, nothing is known. If you see people trying to tweet or report, quote unquote, report that wrestlers are delayed or that the show might be canceled, as of when did I last? As of 15 minutes ago, everything's still running as a normal day of Raw, normal Monday.
Right. And I mean, we are less than 6 hours to showtime. So that's a big deal. I don't think I've seen a show in recent memory that's been, had stuff not announced for it like this. So there's a big question mark when it comes to tonight's Raw. This is like the old ECW shows where they would just announce nothing and then surprise everybody. So hopefully this could go either way. This could be a really good show or it could be a really bad show. But let's see how it plays out.
Yeah. As far as it being a bad show, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a bad show. Well, you never know with Raw, but
Right.
I don't think you're saying a bad show in terms of what they put on. I think you're talking bad show as far as crowd interaction and how much crowd's actually there. Because
Correct.
Like I said, right now in Salt Lake City, you step outside, your foot's going to sink in the snow, and they're projecting at least 3 to 9 more inches throughout the day and early evening.
And that's supposed to go on. I think we were discussing it before we came on air. That's supposed to go on till about the middle of Raw. So, yeah. I mean, people filing in, you might see that first half very empty, even if people are trying to get to Raw. So we'll see. This could be very interesting. But ultimately, I think knowing what possibly could happen, I think all of us will tune in live to see what's up.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Like I said, I'll follow the story. I'll keep in contact with the person I've been contacting with as far as if they hear anything. But as of right now, they haven't heard anything as far as any changes for the day. It's a normal Monday. Go with that for now.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I think with that, we're going to wrap things up here. I want to thank Kenny for joining me here again on another Monday morning.
Thank you guys for having me. And I appreciate it, Tim. Always so awesome to be on the Wrestling Wrap-Up. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining me here. I want to thank everybody who joined us here live to talk about some news in pro wrestling, mostly WWE actually. I want to thank everybody who watches later right here on YouTube or listens on podcast services all around the world like iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and so many more. And as I always say, if we're not on a podcast service that you use, just send me a DM either at TimmyBuddy or at PWUnlimited, and I'll see about getting us added to that. Kenny, where can they find you?
You can find me everywhere. I'm on pretty much anywhere you listen to your audio streaming podcasts. YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube if you're watching there right now live, especially, or on the replay right now. YouTube.com/akenny for your thoughts. You can find me on Instagram at akenny for your thoughts or on Twitter at Kenny Podcast. So look forward to interacting with you somewhere. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I want to say again, thank you for joining me, both the people in the live chat, both the people listening later, and I want to thank Kenny. We will be live again tonight following Monday Night Raw. So have a good day, guys, and we'll see you later.